My man, you have a good week, and we'll catch up next week. Hopefully talking about a Browns win, but we're most likely talking about the debut of Johnny Football.
All right, thanks, buddy.
You got it. John McMullen, you guys can always check him out on the Sports Network and all of his various syndicated articles in newspapers around the country, and he's here every Monday talking Browns and NFL, and we're going to have some stuff to talk about next week. Let's keep this conversation going and add some OH to it. Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan. Let's get him on the phones. We'll get his thoughts on yesterday and the Browns and the quarterback switch, and as well the quarterback switch that they didn't ask for at the Ohio State University. JT Barrett, amazing season, comes from the ashes of Braxton Miller's injury to breathe new life into the Buckeyes season, makes an incredible Heisman Trophy run here down the stretch, obliterating the record book along the way for the Ohio State football team, and then tragedy befalls him down the home stretch over the weekend against Michigan. Their goal is accomplished. They may have lost the game, but they definitely took their toll on the Buckeyes' chances going forward. Now, Cardale Jones is going to step into the spotlight. Maybe a little of that Wildcat with Jalen Marshall mixed in as well. But let's talk about that with Dan Wismar. Does that change your thoughts going forward on the Buckeyes as they try to crack that top four? They've got a Big Ten title to win first, and then they've got to see what happens elsewhere and see how the committee is going to look at JT Barrett. Should they even balance that? Should that be part of it, or should it just be the Ohio State Buckeyes? Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan. Let's get him in on the conversation now. It's a super-duper long edition of the sports. We should have known that coming in with all the stuff going on this weekend. We're talking JT Barrett, Brian Hoyer, Johnny Manziel, quarterback, carouseling around, Cardale Jones, Michigan, Buckeyes, Browns, and more with Dan Wismar coming up next.
We here at the Sports Fix are very in-depth when we interview the sports stars.
Oh, I saw the whole thing, dude. First you were all like, whoa, and then we were like, whoa, and then you were like, whoa. What are you talking about? You caught serious thrill issues, dude. Oh, awesome. Oof.
Maybe not, but you should still listen.
Guys, want to take just a second as we head into this break and remind you about the official business printing source of the Sports Fix, our friends at Signs and Ship. Signs and Ship, I'm telling you, Chris and Pam, they've taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here in Elyria, Ohio that I work with, or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business is the lifeblood of the community. So check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Fantasy Jocks. Visit fantasyjocks.com, your fantasy sports superstore. Championship belts, rings, trophies, and more. Fantasy sports lovers, you put so much time, hard work, and effort into playing week to week that it quickly stops being a fantasy and starts getting real. Real time spent making real decisions, creating real victory.
I'm the greatest man in the world!
And when the smoke clears, you want to show off those victories with a real prize. I mean, a really real prize. Nobody does that like Fantasy Jocks. The crew over at Fantasy Jocks have beautiful, high-quality, and heavy-duty championship belts, rings, trophies, and so much more for all your fantasy sports needs.
The trophy's 12 feet high, and it is glorious!
Football, baseball, hoops, you name it, they have it. Plus, they have awesome draft kits and party supplies to make all your preseason activities the envy of everyone. If your league needs a ring, belt, or trophy, or you want to upgrade what you already have, there's literally only one place to go. If you're going to be a fantasy jock, do it right.
It's mine, the most magnificent belt ever created, and it's mine.
With America's fantasy sports superstore, fantasyjocks.com.
What's your fantasy?
The Sports Fix is now available every day on the world's largest internet radio service, iHeartRadio. Download the free iHeartRadio app, subscribe to the show, and get your fix.
I'm Pro Football Hall of Famer Paul Warfield. There's just one place where students are students first and athletics are played with purpose and perspective. That place is your local high school. High school sports help young people become confident leaders and role models and use the skills developed today to do even bigger things in life tomorrow. High school sports, a winning part of a complete education.
This message presented by the Ohio High School Athletic Association.
In baseball, miracles can happen when a team works together.
2 out, bottom of the ninth, down to their last strike.
The same is true in the fight against cancer. That's why MLB has teamed up with Stand Up to Cancer. Because we believe that when we all stand up together,
41,000 on their feet,
we can make cancer history.
Now everybody's standing.
What a buzz in this building.
This is beyond a dream. Stand up with MLB at standuptocancer.org.
Hey, Cleveland, this is Ed Doherty, voice of San Ignatius Wildcat football, and you're listening to the Sports Fix. We don't give a damn for the whole state of Michigan, the whole state of Michigan, the whole state of Michigan. We don't give a damn for the whole state of Michigan. We're from Ohio. We're from Ohio. Hey. We're from Ohio. We're from Ohio. Hey. We're from Ohio. We don't give a damn for the whole state of Michigan.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live here on the Sports Fix Radio Network. And if you needed another reason not to give a damn for the whole state of Michigan, yeah, JT Barrett. Welcome back. J-Rock with you here, getting ready to be joined by my man Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan. We'll talk about that game over the weekend and the fallout, which is the Buckeyes win. They continue their dominance over a rival, and they probably run you-know-who out of town as the head coach, and all of that. They set themselves up with a date in the Big Ten championship game and an opportunity to perhaps make the college Final Four playoff deal here, but big toll taken. Even if they make it, how effective can they be? As we said earlier, JT Barrett, the quarterback who really grabbed things when Braxton Miller went down, and we had this conversation at the beginning of the season, and Braxton Miller said, "Hey, wait a minute, no, don't take me out of this conversation." And he had a hell of a season. And just as he was putting his final touches on the record books here, tragedy befalls. He goes out, and now the Buckeyes and Cardale Jones are left to pick up the pieces. And I truly believe, as we get ready to go to the phones, that I don't know where they'll be this week as far as with the poll, 4, 5, 6, whatever. I think this will be a test week. And I think if this had happened next week, the Buckeyes may be in trouble when it comes to how the committee puts that Final Four together. But they have 1 week for the committee to see Cardale Jones or whatever the Buckeyes do offensively and go, okay, we can trust to put them in as one of the 4 best teams, because I think there's, in their mind, going to be some belief as to, are the Buckeyes without JT Barrett the same team? So this weekend, the Buckeyes have a chance perhaps to answer that question for the committee. Let's talk about it. Let's go to the phones. My man, Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan. We talk Buckeyes every week with him. As soon as there we go, turn the volume up. Dan, how you doing this Monday afternoon?
I am doing great, J-Rock. Kind of a bittersweet weekend, obviously, for the Buckeyes. But
oh, yeah.
And I think you're right that the injury will factor into what the committee thinks. But I think the committee might just wait and watch them play a football game here this Saturday in Indianapolis and see what they look like with Cardale Jones. I would expect this week to jump up to 5 as Mississippi State drops down, but I think they'll still stay behind TCU this week, and TCU grabbed that 4th spot. And we'll see how it plays out over the next week. But I think a convincing win in Indy, obviously that's going to be difficult, but I think that might just vault them into the top 4, even with the quarterback situation.
Yeah, how about that Alabama game, by the way, the other day? Halfway through it, we're going, wow, is the whole top 4 just going to work out for us here? Is everybody nobody wants in, huh? They're just going to let the Buckeyes not even have to argue this week, and then boom, what a swing. I mean, at one point, I was helping a friend move all weekend, so we were watching games in between, moving from one house to the other, and we were watching that game Saturday night. And at one point, it's a 14-point lead in one direction, and a few minutes later, Alabama just kept on going in the other direction. Did you watch that one?
I did, and I was just shaking my head at how bad the defense was on both sides.
Oh yeah,
as you probably saw after the game, Auburn fired
score 100 points or something
before people got off the bus. The defensive coordinator was fired for Auburn, and for good reason. They were just awful, especially that second half. I've said this. I said it all year that the best football in the country is probably being played in the SEC West. But we were looking very, very much down the barrel of something I predicted 2 months ago, that there might be no SEC team at all with fewer than 2 losses. And as someone was speculating on Twitter the other night, that's the fastest way possible to get to the 8-team playoff is have the. And someone was saying, well, are they going to switch to the 18 playoff, tomorrow, or are going to wait till the next day, if Alabama loses here, because that would have left the playoff without an SEC team, and ESPN would have had to turn themselves inside out if that happened. So it looked very much like we'd have that very scenario. You figured Mississippi State was going to lose a game or two, and Auburn got knocked out a couple weeks ago, and Ole Miss has 2 losses. Auburn has more than 2 losses. So, really all that had to happen is for Alabama to take another loss to knock the SEC out of the ranks of the 1-loss teams and really put the committee in a very bad spot where they almost would have to put a 2-loss SEC West team in there. But, again, Alabama pulled it out and looks like they're going to remain number 1. And they should be able to handle Missouri no problem this week, and we'll see how things play out. But it was really going to make the best reasoning ever for an 8-team playoff if SEC got shut out. So for the moment, we don't have to worry about that.
Funny you say that. I've been joking with a buddy all season about this playoff thing. I said, not what you said, but about an 8-team playoff. I said, well, it'll work out eventually here as soon as they have a few problems, because you'll just get they'll brand it. ESPN will jump in on this thing, and it'll be the SEC versus the World Challenge, and it'll be 4 SEC teams against the 4 outsiders, and then everybody can be happy, and that'll be the new playoff once they expand to 8, and they can put a challenge brand on it. No, I'm just kidding. But
but you're right though. The defense in that game was awful, and then it was exposed a little bit. And then you had on the other side of it 4 SEC teams. They were 0-4 from the SEC East
against the ACC.
0-4 against the ACC on Saturday. So that took a little bit of the luster off their chrome the other day. And so I don't know. I'm not convinced that they play a whole separate elite brand of football in the SEC that the rest of the country is looking up to. I just don't believe it.
Florida State.
Ohio State Buckeyes would easily win the SEC East, and they'd be maybe the second best team in the SEC West. So I'm just not buying it.
Oh, you just made some people mad.
Top to bottom, that league is better than the Big Ten, but at the top of the Big Ten, the top of the Big Ten can compete with any of them.
You just made some people mad all over listening. Go, what did he just say? How Ohio State, the SEC? What did he say? But anyways, what about, real quick, looking at those other top teams? How about Florida State? What is that, 4 or 5 games now this year that they could have lost, should have lost, but didn't lose, and they just keep with. They don't have a hard. People talk about Ohio State's schedule, and theirs is like twice as hard as Florida State's schedule. But they keep slipping out of these games that they are finding ways to win against teams that really shouldn't have them in as much. They constantly struggle with some. I get it that it's a rivalry game. We talk about how that doesn't matter, but you had an unranked Florida team there who I really thought for most of that game may be able to pull the upset.
Sure. You're right. Florida State, they've struggled all year. probably have their best game in their opener when they throttled Clemson. But